It is a whopper of a combo. An iconic American restaurant is looking to buy one of Canada's biggest brands. Burger King is in talks with Tim Hortons for a massive merger worth billions of dollars. It's also a deal that would see yet another U.S. company leaving the country to lower its tax rate. Scott Peterson is here with more on that. So, Scott, a lot of buzz about this online. Canadians are asking, what will this mean for the Tim Hortons brand? Are we going to start seeing Whoppers at Timmy's?
Or Timbits at Burger King? No, we're not. Both companies would remain separate. At this point, they're just acknowledging they're in talks at this point, but they will remain separate. But both companies together will be the third largest fast food restaurant in the world. 18,000 locations, $18 billion worth of brand names if they both came together at this point. And Burger King, most interesting, will renounce its U.S. citizenship, basically pack up its bags, move its corporate headquarters to Canada, and that's what's really raising attention within Canadian circles and U.S. circles this morning.
Yeah, and so speaking of relocating, this deal is being called a tax inversion. Barack Obama quite upset about all of this. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we're going to hear an awful lot about this. We might see a lot of different policies happening here, but this is where a U.S. company basically takes over a company in another country with a favorable tax status. So companies look for a tax break for companies in places other than the U.S. They pay lower taxes on corporate profits. And if we take a look at the Canadian tax scheme here, corporate taxes of 15% in this country, compare that to the U.S. where they're in the neighborhood of about 35%. So that's almost a 20% tax advantage to move a company to Canada to take advantage of that. And that really adds up. We saw it with U.S. Valiant back in 2010. They took over BioVale. We saw it again with Pfizer trying to take over AstraZeneca in the UK. And Burger King would be the first U.S. company, sort of a quote-unquote household name to do this. So it takes it out of the pharmaceutical world and puts it firmly in people's attention. So this will be a big one. This will cause a lot of attention on both sides.
And so let's talk a little bit about how the U.S. government can't be too thrilled about this. And when the President of the United States comments on something like this happening, you know that it's a big deal.
You know, this reflects like Ross Perot years ago saying that, you know, listen to the sound of jobs being drained to Mexico. The same worry is here, that all these big U.S. corporations are going to be losing the tax base as far as paying taxes within U.S. soil. President Obama, as you mentioned, called this an unpatriotic loophole. There's estimates the U.S. economy is losing $700 billion of taxes at this point. And the White House is calling on Congress to take a look at this. They're asking the Treasury Department to see how we can prevent, or they can prevent, deals like this from happening, because if this deal goes through, it could turn the tide and we could see just the beginning of a real exodus of companies looking for other smaller companies to take over outside of U.S. soil.
But most of the operations would stay in the United States. So the headquarters would be here. Burger King's headquarters, world headquarters, would be here in Canada.
Yes.
But what does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that technically, you know, maybe the CEO and all the big executives are still in the U.S. Burger King is based in Miami, but in name, in principle, all the paperwork would have to be registered. They would have to show that they're incorporated within Canada. That would give them the tax-exempt status. But we'd have to dig into this books to see if they would, in fact, be moving the CEO themselves or that team. That's yet to be seen, but that's probably unlikely.
And then final question to you. Barack Obama can be upset, Congress can be upset, but that's not likely enough to stop this from actually happening, right?
No, well, it might not be. It might be too late for them to stop this from happening, but the worry is let's try to close the barn door before all the cattle get out at this point. But this is expected to be spun as a very favorable thing from our Canadian politicians, showing that lower corporate tax rates are a good thing as far as, you know, attracting investment and potentially more jobs.